Hi everyone, my name is Sylvester Chauke. I am an under 40 CEO.
The African Renaissance. The concept that the African people and nation shall overcome the current challenges confronting the continent and achieve cultural, scientific, and economic renewal is here, with young men and women taking the lead. Some call them the new school heroes. We call them under 40 CEOs.
Sylvester Chauke won the coveted All-Africa Young Business Leader of the Year in 2017. A self-confessed Madonna-crazy, multi-award-winning entrepreneur and founder of DNA Brand Architect. After an illustrious career as the National Marketing Manager for Nando's South Africa, Sylvester joined broadcasting giant MTV Networks Africa as its Director of Marketing and Communication. Today, besides running one of the most innovative brand agencies in South Africa, Sylvester Chauke is one of the 22 young leaders from around the world to sit on the Advisory Council for the World Economic Forum Global Shapers. Sylvester's business acumen has led him to be invited to sit, amongst others, on the board of the South African State Theatre, chair of the Artistic and Sponsorship Committee, and is also on the advisory board for the University of Johannesburg. Sylvester Chauke is the Chief Brand Architect at DNA Brand Architect.
All right, welcome to Under 40 CEOs,
how
Sylvester.
are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good, it's good to be
All right.
here.
Oh, it's good to be here. It's even better to be here. Amazing, lovely place you've got.
Thank you.
Right,
Thank you.
let's get into it.
Yes.
You attended the University of Johannesburg, where you bagged your bachelor's degree. That was in 2002, and this was in marketing communications, right?
Yes.
Please tell me about growing up in South Africa and share about your preteen years, because there's not much about that out there.
Yes. I grew up in Soweto. I'm born and bred in Soweto in Johannesburg.
Amazing.
Soweto is a melting pot of incredible different cultures, backgrounds and languages.
Okay.
And so you grew up being able to engage with a very diverse set of people, whether it's at school, whether it's out in the community or at church. So it's a very welcoming community. It's a busy community, but the hustle and bustle of Johannesburg, I think it's a heartbeat of Johannesburg is actually Soweto.
All right.
I grew up within a small family, just like a typical black family growing up in Joburg, really trying to make a living. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. So tell me, what were you up to between the year 2002 and the year 2008 when you joined MTV?
Geez, it's actually quite amazing how the time frame is.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's quite short, but it feels like a lifetime to me. So from 2002, obviously, I bagged my degree, and then I started working as an intern in an advertising agency called FCB.
Oh, nice.
It was the biggest advertising agency at the time, working on some of the best and biggest brands like Vodacom, Adcock Ingram, as well as True Love magazine and those kind of brands. So I really got into the advertising industry back then. I was actually 19 years old when I started.
Okay.
And that really was the foundation for me, and from there worked in other different advertising agencies like Ogilvy in Joburg, which was incredible, one of the best advertising agencies in the world.
Definitely.
And then I worked also at DDB, which is one of the most awarded advertising agency group in the world as well. So I've been very, very fortunate to work with some of the best within the continent and within the world. Then I moved to Nando's, where I became the national marketing manager for Nando's in South Africa. An amazing company, amazing leadership. And then of course after Nando's, that's when I joined MTV Networks as the Director of Marketing and Communications.
Right, so before your stint as Marketing and Communications Director, you spent less than a year at MTV in 2008. Why?
Well, you mean the first time around?
Yes.
Yes. I had left Nando's to join MTV because I really wanted to get in more Pan-African experience and also broadcasting experience, which is something that I've always been passionate about. I love the MTV brand and I believe in what they were doing at the time on the continent. And of course, Alex Okosi, who is the Senior Vice President and MD of Viacom in Africa, was an individual that I wanted to learn from and to grow from. So it was an incredible step. However, I think in the beginning stages, the Nando's opportunity was still so brilliant and still so potent because we were doing so much really on the continent at the time, and there was a need for my skill set to still be utilized, and that's really the reason behind that.
All right, so please do tell me more about your time at Nando's as national marketing manager.
Nando's is a South African brand and one of the very few South African brands that are on the high streets of European streets and American streets. Phenomenal brand, started by two entrepreneurs who built this brand locally and then be able to expand it across over 1,200 restaurants around the world, across all countries really. So you can imagine you're learning and working with some of the most interesting entrepreneurs, some of the most brilliant entrepreneurs, and so I was constantly learning, constantly being challenged to do better work, constantly having to figure out the best way to do something innovative and new all the time, because the leadership there really loved and absolutely appreciated creativity, and it really, Nando's in my history as a professional has been a phenomenal foundation for me, because it really set out a tone and a vibe that I've always appreciated about brands and how brands can communicate and be relevant in the communities which they serve.
All right, amazing. So by 2010, you brought some of this creativity and innovation to MTV Networks Africa as, of course, the marketing and communications director.
Yes.
So please do tell me about your milestones at MTV.
MTV is a brand that is about excellence, and it's about showcasing, and on the continent, it's really about showcasing creativity, our creativity as a continent, whether it's our artists or our creatives, and really elevating them up in the world. So the opportunity and to work in an environment like that, where the leadership is really about how do we shine our talent across the globe, how do we showcase the best of what we have on the African continent to the world, was an incredible job. So our milestone was really always about ensuring that we're able to take our local talent and really elevate them around the world. And that's something that has happened, whether it's Two-Face Adibia, whether it is AKA, whether it is the likes of Bonang Mateba, for example, in South Africa, being able to open the world for incredible artists and thespians and creatives on the African continent to be noticed around the world is a milestone that is bigger than gold, because it is really, for me, where we started seeing our African artists really elevated across the globe and opening up interesting partnerships around the world for them to be able to build their brands. An amazing place to learn, really.
With the energy and innovation it brings to any endeavor, the experience garnered from working with MTV and Nando's, and the exposure the experience had guaranteed, Sylvester was ready to strike out on his own.
All right, so fast forward to 2012, February. Yes, DNA Brand Architect.
That's right.
was launched.
Whoa, DNA Brand Architect.
Amazing.
I get a lump in my throat when I think about DNA Brand Architect. It's really nothing but an experiment, taking all the experience that I've had over time and being able to put them in a place that I could be able to really mold into what I believe would be a really interesting business of the future, driven by young people, proudly black, proudly African, and I think it's something that has been a phenomenal ride. We are celebrating our 7th year next year.
Amazing.
So we're still very young, we're still a baby, and we are growing, but I have have never learned as much as a leader that I've learned since I joined DNA Brand Architects.
All right, so what problem was DNA Brand Architects created to solve?
You know, it's interesting. From the onset, we knew that African brands are great brands. However, the continent does not necessarily embrace our brands as much as they should. And therefore, the world is not necessarily seeing our brands as much as they should. So the continent is a consuming continent. We consume brands, and we consume American brands, British brands, Australian brands, and we're not necessarily really pushing our own brands. So from the onset, the dream has always been, how can we elevate our brands? How can we work with South African or African brands to be able to really play at a global level in a impactful way? And of course started off with just managing and working with local brands, local businesses to try to push their brands in South Africa and the rest of the continent. And the problem that we're trying to solve was really elevating our brands into a Pan-African environment and platform, also into a global platform in terms of how we need to think. We're only in our 7th year, so we're not there yet. We're still pushing to try to get to that point, because we believe as DNA Brand Architects that the continent needs to elevate their brands, and we need to do all we can to ensure that we are pushing our brands at a global level to be big so that they can be able to have impact. Because the study that came out of the World Economic Forum 2 years ago showed that of the top 500 brands in the world, there's not even one brand coming out of the African continent, still today. There isn't one big enough, which is quite sad for such a vibrant, creative continent. So we have a lot to do, and DNA Brand Architects hopes to play a mark in that.
So talking about these brands and these businesses, who are your clients?
Our clients varied. We're really blessed to have some amazing clients. Telcom in telecommunications, in breweries. We work with South African breweries. We work with Volvo, which is obviously a Swedish brand that is really wanting to have a nice stronghold here. Work with banking brands, consumer-facing brands. So Tiger Brands, which is in the FMCG space. So we have a plethora of incredible brands that we work with and we support.
All right, so let's go back to Soweto real quick. So growing up, I'm sure you had like other interests that you intended to pursue at some point. What are those interests, and when would you decide eventually it's time to pursue them?
I've always wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a dancer. And then I was also very interested in being a lawyer. Then I got interested in being a journalist. I think just like any young person, you are interested in what you see on television. So whatever that I saw on television that seemed exciting, I wanted to be that. However, my life really changed when I was accepted at an audition to go and become part of a television commercial. I arrived on set and I got introduced to a new world. So I could say that the advertising and brand communication kind of found me. But before that, I wanted to be many things. But one thing that I really thought was a big passion for me was being a dancer. I wanted to be a professional dancer, a professional ballet dancer.
Amazing. So tell me, what are those major hurdles and challenges that you've had to overcome to make the strides you've made so far?
I grew up, like many young Africans, in an environment where access was a challenge. So financial access was a big, problem. And for me, I've always understood and knew that in order for me to be able to make an impact in my life, I needed to fight very hard, to kind of make my dreams a reality. And one of my biggest challenges at the time, particularly from high school onwards, was just getting into university. It was quite a huge challenge because I come from a very modest family where the ability for us to be able to for them to pay for me to go to university was not possible. But at the time, I needed to raise enough funds so I can at least register into university. And then the rest, I was going to be able to try to work part-time and work at stores and try and work as a promoter to try to raise money so I can be able to complete university. So the biggest hurdle at the time was really me getting into university. Fast forward, when you get into leadership of businesses, Nando's, MTV, you have to be a great leader. You have to learn to lead. So the hurdle of, it's not about you. It's not just about what you want to do. It's also about how you be able to impart the people that you lead. And so it becomes, you shift your mindset, not only about what you need, but also what people that you lead actually also need. And of course, then moving into starting DNA, brand architects, challenges, constant challenges and hurdles to jump. You know, the intention of the business, the opportunities of the business, the challenges that we face on a daily basis, managing team, managing the challenges, managing the economy and its highs and lows, managing some of the failures and losses. So there are always hurdles, but what I would like to say is that, or what's helped me, is that hurdles are always there. So it's like the roller coaster is always there.
In motion.
The roller coaster is always in motion, and it's our job as leaders to be able to ride the roller coaster, ride the ups and ride the downs.
Oh, amazing! I love that perspective. But what would you say makes the South African business landscape unique?
South African business landscape is unique in many respects. I think we are a nation that really wants to be able to take its people forward. And you can see, as a young entrepreneur in South Africa, I can see the kind of opportunities that are there for me as an entrepreneur. So whether it is the ability to be able to tap into the infrastructure that we've got available, that it's possible to do business here and to do it well, and we've got systems and laws and rules and regulations that help us and protect us as small businesses and protect the people that we work with as well in terms of labor laws, etc. So the environment is conducive for a small business that wants to be serious about building a business.
From Soweto to the boardroom, Sylvester has scaled major hurdles and built an enviable business with a roster of incredible clientele.
All right, so what would you say is the current business structure at DNA?
The current business structure as DNA, I mean, it is a small business, so I have a team of directors who look after their different respective areas and who report into the leadership, who reports it to me, and who've got their senior brand architects and associate brand architects and brand assistants. So it's a very simple structure and it works for us. We're still a small business.
All right. So what would you say are the most critical lessons that you've learned and can share in running a business and possibly to profitability?
You have to know what you are trying to do with the business. And it might be a different view than most entrepreneurs. It can't be about the money. It actually can't be about the money only. Because what keeps me going, what keeps me awake, what keeps me excited, what keeps me enthused is what the business allows me to do. Whether it's employing great people that work with us, whether it's being able to impart what I know, whether it's being able to create something that becomes something even bigger and better. So for me, why you're doing it is important than just the money aspect. I've also learned you're gonna fall. I've fallen many times, and I've been disappointed many times in business. I've been hurt many times in business, and I have been left bleeding in business, growing this business. It's left me empty sometimes, but you have to be able to get up quickly and be able to remember why you started, and it helps to be able to continue to grow. And so when I fall now, when I receive bad news now, it touches me, it affects me a little bit, but I know that I've been there before and I've been able to rise above it, and that's something that helps me. And that's been one of the biggest lessons. I've always thought that starting the business was going to be the hardest, but it's actually really hard now, sustaining it
the business
and keeping it. Those days were fun. These days are hard work.
A lot of hard work.
A lot of hard work.
Right.
Constant hard work.
Okay. So tell me, how has travel and interacting with different cultures helped to shape your values, your person, and your firm?
Oh man, I have been so blessed because just from my earlier career working in advertising, I had incredible leaders who led me, who exposed me, so they would take me with to a lot of business travel. So travel is something that I appreciate and I value so much. And I've been able to take that into DNA and also be able to expose my leadership and my team to as much of that travel as possible. What it does do for me, it makes me come back renewed and refreshed because I know what is possible, not only that I've read about it, but because I've seen it and I've experienced it. And so when I come back to the country, I feel like we have a lot to do and there's so much more that needs to be done. And that's what travel does. It exposes you to so much more out there. And it also exposes you to what you have and the opportunities that you have around you.
Walking through the offices of DNA Brand Architects feels like a walk through the Hall of Fame of a business that has been built over decades, and not one that's less than a decade old.
Okay, amazing. So you've received a lot of awards, nods, accolades, recognition for your work. You know, what are these awards? And of course, I'm facing a shelf with quite a number of those, and then right behind me is a lot more, and then down the hallways, you know, I was told that's just some of them. What do they truly mean to you?
They are an incredible encouragement. When you start a business, you just hope that it's going to be able to sustain itself somehow. And so when you are being acknowledged for the work that you are creating, it's special and it's an incredible pat on the back. And they're a constant reminder that that we are on the right track and that maybe what we're doing is working.
Yes.
It's humbling as well, because many times I walk into my office and I'm humbled by what we've been able to create in such a short period of time. But it also comes with a responsibility, you know, because you feel that there has to be a belief in the business, that people believe in what we are and believe in what we're about. And as a result, you also want to just pass it on and continue to build it to even more success.
All right. So you've led this team to win, you know, numerous awards over time. But tell me, what's your leadership style?
My leadership style is collaborative. I think that I've learned earlier on that collaboration is key. When people understand what they are doing and why they're doing it is vital. And people being able to see themselves as the key conduits to that success is actually very, very important.
All right. So tell me, honestly, what are your flaws and failings as a leader?
My flaws are clear, and generally I know I can be very difficult. And my team, you know, they know that, you know, sometimes I have an idea and I'd love to have the idea happen, and sometimes it's very difficult for it to just happen that easily. So I can be very difficult. I don't take no for an answer. So I really believe that if we want something, we have to push for it. And so I don't do well with people telling me no, or hearing no's, you know, generally. And then I also work in a very fast pace. I work very fast, and sometimes it can be a challenge for some people to be able to kind of keep up with the pace, and I've had to, you know, work hard with coaching to be able to learn how to manage different types of individuals and different pace, you know, that needs to be there. But you know, I'm a human being, and I'm also learning and I'm growing as well.
All right, so tell me, what values are important to you and DNA?
Community, and I think that the ability to understand that what we do must benefit the people that work here and must benefit the community that in which we work within. I think that brings so many different values, you know, together. But I can't be successful if they're not. They can't be successful if I'm not. So what's good for me has to be good for them. What's good for them has to be good for me.
What would you say is the biggest letdown you've experienced in business so far?
The biggest letdown in business so far is putting a lot of hope in certain areas of the business that don't come to fruition. So investing in people that turn around and actually become your worst enemies. That has been one of my most, it's not a very proud moment for me. But I've also, a betrayal in business is challenging. And I 2 years ago, I experienced a major betrayal in the business that left me questioning so many things, but left me so empowered. Left me so empowered, and I've learned so much, from it, because business can be quite cutthroat. People are really focused on their own success, and that's very clear. And so you can't blame people for focusing on what they need to get from where they are in life. However, I think just being able to know that is part of business, that's just the nature of business, has been an amazing lesson for me.
A difficult leader who is succinctly aware of his flaws and failings, but has adopted a collaborative approach to leadership. Sylvester believes in building a community with a solid culture. However, we seek to know what he does with time away from work and what his lifestyle choices are.
So I have a few quick-fire questions for you. What do you love to eat?
I love many things, but chicken is generally, smoked chicken is definitely on the radar. I love good salads, absolutely stunning. A great burger and chips, amazing.
All right. So how would you describe your fashion style?
My fashion style, comfortable but with personality.
Your favorite brands to wear?
Linda Makaya suit.
What CEOs do you look up to?
A number, there's a lot. Robbie Brosen, the founder of Nando's. I look after Robbie. I love his way, I love his approach, and I love to see what he has created. Phenomenal. Nunu Njengila, she's the CEO and the head of Facebook Africa. Values that don't change, strength, stature, focus, grace, kindness. That's what she teaches and reminds me of. Glenn Lomas, the CEO of DDB South Africa, taught me, and I look after him because he's about solutions and solving problems and how people can solve problems in an interesting way. I love these CEOs.
Wow. So what's your favorite car to drive?
Audi.
Your favorite travel destination?
Thailand.
Your favorite book of all time?
Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukov.
And what book are you reading right now?
Right now, I am reading The Ego is the Enemy.
So lastly, I'd like to know, Sylvester, what makes you happy?
Making people happy fulfills me.
Amazing. Thank you for coming on Under 40 CEO, Sylvester.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hi, my name is Sylvester Chauke, and you too can be an Under 40 CEO.